Okay, I think it is past 4:30, so it's time to get the meeting started. We're going to start off with the pledge that Scott is going to lead us in, followed by the prayer by Kenan.
Heavenly Father, we ask that you be with us, that we might make decisions that are pleasing to you and beneficial to our county. Let us all get along, unlike Washington DC, and make it positive, make it good, and make our county even better than it is. And it is a great county. Thank God for Indiana. Amen.
So first on the agenda is the approval of the April meeting minutes. Do you hear any motions or corrections to those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
So we have motion approved in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we are going to trade spaces with the fine young ladies here from the Shenandoah FFA to do their presentation and give them the floor. So ladies, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Indiana, and welcome to a special report on the future of the American diet. My name is Gabby Patrick, and I'm here reporting live from the Paymore Grocery in Mechanicsburg, Indiana for Channel 82 News. Can Americans afford to eat healthy? It's a question that goes beyond just dollars and cents. It's about household finances, access, education, and priorities. I believe that the vast majority of Americans desire to eat healthy, but can they afford to do so? I personally do not know of a family in our community that has not experienced the pain of higher grocery bills. Today, we are going to examine the pros and cons of two key segments of food production. The first area of discussion is ultra-processed foods, and the second is organic food production. It is important to define both areas of discussion. Ultra-processed foods are industrial formulations made from substances derived from foods along with additives to enhance flavor, texture, and shelf life. Examples include chips, soda, candy, and prepackaged meals. Organic food refers to agricultural products grown and processed according to specific standards that emphasize resource conservation, environmentally sustainable, and the avoidance of synthetic inputs. Fruits, dairy products, vegetables, and meats can all be considered organic under specified regulations. I'm looking forward to ask some local shoppers their thoughts on if America can afford to eat healthy. Question 1. Should ultra-processed foods have a significant role in the American diet? Let's see if any shoppers would be willing to share their thoughts. Would any of you be willing to share your thoughts on the ultra-processed food question?
I'd be happy to.
Tell the audience your name, please.
My name's Clara and I'm from Mechanicsburg.
The floor is yours.
The truth is, I still purchase a lot of ultra processed foods, mostly for convenience. I'm in college, I'm single, and highly processed foods save time, and that's a big deal. Ready to eat snacks and meals allow me to eat on the go. I also think that a lack of available fresh foods close by causes many people to shop at their local convenience stores. Going to my local Dollar Tree saves time, gas, and they have relatively low prices on ultra processed foods. I read that according to the US Census Bureau, in 82% of the households in America, the adults work away from home. Quick and easy meals are a big help.
Thank you so much, Clara. Does anyone have any other thoughts? Miss, what do you think?
I'm AJ, and I see things a little differently than Clara. While I certainly understand the convenience aspect, the picture isn't entirely rosy. I work for the Mechanicsburg Civic Theater, and I am very aware that one of the biggest drawbacks of highly processed foods is poor nutritional value. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition stated that over 75% of the food energy consumed by Americans was from processed foods. My understanding is that processing can strip foods of vitamins and minerals, and while some nutrients may be added back, it's impossible to recreate the food's original nutritional value. This can lead to deficiencies in vital nutrients necessary for good health. Furthermore, processed foods are typically low in dietary fiber, which is crucial for digestive health, blood sugar regulation, and maintaining a healthy weight.
I can see you've done your research, AJ. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any thoughts?
I have some thoughts I think are worthwhile.
Tell the audience your name, please.
Hi, I'm Kylie Lutz, and I'm a single mom with a toddler.
Well, Kylie, the mic is yours.
In my single parent home and with my work schedule, two factors come in mind: affordability and accessibility. Processed foods are often much more cheaper than fresh produce, making it more of a valuable option for people on a tight budget like me. They have a longer shelf life, which means less food waste and fewer trips to the grocery. I read a study by Harvard that found eating an unhealthy diet costs $3 more per person per day than an unhealthy one. For families living paycheck to paycheck, that is a big deal. The cost of fresh produce, lean proteins, and whole grains can be far much more expensive than processed foods, and my kids will at least eat store-bought meals.
What about the long-term effects? Hi, I'm Kaylin Lynch, and unhealthy eating habits can lead to conditions like obesity, heart disease, and diabetes, things that come with high medical expenses. According to the National Blood, Lung, and Heart Institutes, Americans are spending $50 billion per year just to keep up with their diets. Specifically, 45% of all heart-related deaths come straight from the food that we're eating daily. Spending more on healthy food today will save you thousands in medical bills tomorrow. Also, the food that we're putting in our carts today is genetically modified and engineered to have higher sugar and salt levels, leading you and me to overindulgence. And that makes it really hard to maintain that balanced diet we're all striving for. And in my opinion, our health is worth a little more money.
Thank you so much for this food for thought, Kaylin. Are there any other thoughts?
I have one that I think deserves to be heard.
The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maddie, and I live in Middletown. I know that ultra-processed foods have many health concerns, but I also believe they have certain health advantages. While many find it hard to believe, food safety and preservation play a significant role in the success of ultra-processed foods. Truly, fresh foods need to be stored correctly and eaten quickly. Ultra-processed foods have long expiration dates due to a variety of processing techniques, which eliminate or inhibit the growth of harmful microorganisms, making food safer. The addition of preservatives, such as salt and chemical additives, helps prevent the growth of bacteria, molds, and yeast. Unfortunately, fresh fruits, vegetables, and meat have a much higher occurrence of bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli. The bottom line is that ultra-processed foods have a much better track record with foodborne illness and storage success than fresh foods.
Thank you so much, Maddie. We have time for one more person to share their thoughts on ultra-processed foods.
I've got this one. Thanks, Gabby. My name is Kylie Purcell, and my husband and I farm outside of Sulphur Springs with our 3 kids. I believe Maddie is correct as far as she goes. However, ultra-processed foods are guilty of certain additives that are being re-examined as potential health risks. The issues of these questionable additives being used to improve appearance, taste, texture, and shelf life is not necessarily good for anyone. Manufacturers add artificial flavors, colors, and preservatives to increase profits and sales. While approved by regulatory agencies, the long-term effects of these additives are still being debated. The Mayo Clinic states that these additives are not good for anyone. Those with food allergies, this can be a problem. Synthetic food dyes have been in the news recently. Studies have found that dyes have been linked to hyperactivity and attention deficit issues in some children, and my kids are already hyper enough. Dyes have also been linked to cancers and other types of diseases. With this health cost, is it any wonder that the Department of Health and Human Services is proposing to ban all petroleum food dyes?
Thank you so much, Kylie. Thank you for all your thoughts, but if y'all don't mind hanging around, I have one more question. Many people assert it is impossible to eat healthy without organic produced foods. Should Americans forego traditional food choices, even healthy foods, and design their daily consumption only around organic foods? AJ, if it's okay, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. One of the advantages of organic foods is the absence of synthetic pesticide and fertilizer residue found in the food. I saw a report by the London Clinic of Nutrition that stated that the levels of pesticide residues found in food was eye-opening. Amongst many others, they found that 100% of conventionally grown oranges, 53% of lettuce, and even 33% of cereal bars were contaminated by multiple pesticide residues, with the World Health Organization and dozens more saying that the levels of pesticides is significant. I pay attention. Organic produce can be especially important for vulnerable groups like children and pregnant women, who can be even more sensitive to pesticide residues. Additionally, organic livestock are raised without antibiotics, reducing consumers' exposure to antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The health benefits make organic foods an easy choice for my family.
Thank you for being so knowledgeable, AJ. Kylie, do you have any comments on organic?
I do. There are serious downsides to eating all organic. The most obvious one is cost. Organic foods are often 20 to 60% more expensive than conventional options. They really jumped with inflation. That's according to Leaning Tree analysis that found organic foods had steep price hikes last year as price for organic fruits and vegetables rose 13.1%, while conventional produce rose less than 10%. Organic eggs and meat almost doubled. This price difference is due to more labor-intensive farming practices and stricter regulation standards. This is a significant drawback. With a little planning and creativity, nutrient-rich meals can be made on a budget.
Kaylin, you look like you'd like to jump in. What are your thoughts on organic?
I would, thank you. I can see Callie's point, but the cost difference doesn't seem as critical when you look at all of organic's advantages. The biggest being that it's generally better for the environment. Organic production promotes biodiversity, increases soil health, and reduces pollution from chemical runoff. This sustainable approach not only helps protect ecosystems, but helps conserve our natural water resources. Organic production also helps increase soil fertility and structure by using natural fertilizers like compost and manure. A study by the Rodale Institute stated that if it took 10,000 medium-sized farms and turned them to organic production, it has put as much carbon back into the soil as if we took 1 million cars off the road. Organic production is sustainable agriculture in the purest sense. And can the environment really afford the cost of not going all organic?
Thank you so much, Kaylin. Maddie?
A big concern is the limited availability and shorter shelf life of organic production. The availability of organic production is dependent on where you live, how much money you have, and if organic is even sold in your area. In fact, a study by Illinois Tech in Chicago stated that almost twice as many of those with lower incomes reported they do not buy organic compared to wealthier Americans. Urban regions, especially those with higher income populations, often have a greater access to organic options through specialty stores and farmers markets. In contrast, rural areas face limited availability of organic options. I rely on convenience stores that stock primarily processed foods that store well. Organic produce has a shorter shelf life because it does not contain artificial preservatives and will spoil faster, leading to more food waste.
Thank you so much. Kylie, do you have any comments on the taste of organic food?
Absolutely. There are certainly some people that argue that organic food tastes better. Although taste is subjective, the idea of organic farming methods, which focuses on plant diversity and soil health, resonates with many people. Additionally, organic produce has to be fresher because it doesn't contain any preservatives. Factors such as freshness, ripeness, and personal taste may enhance someone's perception of flavor. The biggest difference may be between our ears. Cornell University did a study that states that many people ranked foods labeled as organic as tasting better, lower in calories, and more nutritious, even when there was no actual difference between the samples. This phenomenon, known as the halo effect, states that the organic label alone can enhance perceived taste and quality.
Thank you so much. Well, Clara, any final thoughts?
I'd like to come back to Kaylin's thoughts on the environment. While organic farming is certainly better for the environment in some ways, it requires more land to produce the same yield as conventional farming. This directly contributes to deforestation and habitat loss, especially if organic farming were to scale up significantly. USDA survey data shows that organic methods had lower yields and higher total economic costs by an average of 18 to 24%. This is because organic methods avoid using synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, which are highly effective at boosting crop growth and protecting against pests and diseases. We cannot afford to lose the land needed to go all organic. It would be an ecological disaster.
Thank you so much, Clara. I cannot thank our shoppers enough for willing to share their thoughts on the question, can Americans afford to eat healthy? In summary, highly processed foods are a double-edged sword. They offer convenience, affordability, and safety, but they also pose potential health risks due to poor nutritional value, addictive qualities, and artificial additives. It is much the same with our second question. Organic foods offer clear benefits, like environmentally sustainable, resource conservation, and potentially better taste. However, they also come with challenges like shorter shelf life, lower productivity, and higher cost. Can Americans afford to eat healthy? We have heard several key factors for consumers to consider, whether it's the cost, the accessibility, or the convenience. The American consumer must decide if they can sacrifice the cost, money, time, and nutritional value, but ultimately, that choice is their own. This is Gabby Patrick signing off for Channel 82 News. Have a great day.
Do any of you possibly have any questions that we could answer? Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
They've almost snuck out, but the ladies did a phenomenal job. We appreciate them coming this afternoon. Next on our agenda, Mr. Murphy.
Good afternoon, council members. With your permission, Chad, I would like to talk about the Redevelopment Commission yearly report first. Do you all have a copy of that? So this is a report that I've been doing for about 10 years on behalf of the Redevelopment Commission. And I want to just briefly walk through it and then answer any questions that you may have. So it's filed with the DLGF in the middle of April. It's for the calendar year 2024. On the first page, under the Consolidated Redevelopment Area, Section C, there's a long list of fund balances. Anything that has P&I or principal and interest or DSR, debt service reserve, is tied to a bond and really isn't available other than those purposes. So debt service reserve is held and, made to make the last payment of a bond, and principal and interest is we transfer money into the principal and interest account to pay the bond payment. So really the flexible source for the Redevelopment Commission to do projects is the allocation fund. The next page lists our bonds, and there are 7 of them. So page 2 and 3, but I'm pleased to present that first bond was paid off in 2024. So it will drop off and disappear from next year's report. I have added additional information for you. So at the end of the name, in parentheses, I have listed the interest rate that the commission is paying on the bond and what the bond is used for. If the bond title says refunding, refunding is like refinancing your home. So refunding, we refinanced a loan because there was a compelling reason to do so, and usually that is interest. These bonds are payable solely from the Redevelopment Commission, no other public pledge. And they're payable from 3 allocation areas: the Consolidated Allocation Area, the Spiceland Economic Development Area, which is on page 3 of the report, and then the I-70 State Road 3 Economic Development Area. Those 3 allocation areas were pledged to pay the debt service on these bonds. When the Redevelopment Commission goes to issue bonds, we have to have your permission and we have to have the county commissioner's permission to do so. But it starts with the Redevelopment Commission. And thankfully, over the years, we've been able to do that and not ask for any other pledge. On page 4 of the report, the I-70 State Road 109 allocation area. That was one of my first projects when I arrived in 2013, was the creation of that allocation area. And it was set up to create a savings account for infrastructure along the 109 project or along the 109 corridor. So if that ever moves forward, that's where we pay the town of Knightstown from, is that allocation area. The County Road 400 South allocation area has one taxpayer, and that is Boar's Head Provisions. It was set up specifically as an incentive for the location of their facility. On page 5, you'll see 2 bonds there. The source of repayment on those bonds is Boar's Head taxes and Boar's Head taxes only. If Boar's Head doesn't pay their taxes, then that bond is not paid. And then on page 6, at the bottom, there's a chart that's a wrap up a summary of how the funds were spent by category. And then my favorite part is page 7, not because it's the last page. We support the Career Center to help them purchase equipment. And we've done it for a number of years. But in 2024, the Redevelopment Commission agreed to basically give them double their annual allocation, or fast forward one country. It was $30,000 a year. And we basically did 2 contributions in 1 year to help them purchase some equipment. So really proud of that partnership. The Career Center does good work. I say that as a parent and also as in my day job. Are there any questions about the Redevelopment Commission's report?
Baker Tilly's still your fiscal financial advisor.
Yes. But I'm proud to say that I do this report myself.
Kudos.
If I could have the minutes reflect that I reviewed this with you, that would be helpful. You don't necessarily have to accept it or approve it, but I would like the minutes to reflect that
I'll make a motion that Corey Murphy review the Redevelopment Commission annual report with the county council on 5/14/2025.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank
Uh,
you.
thank you for that. I want to talk to you about Ready One and 2 projects. So $190,000 was allocated to the YMCA for the expansion of their facility for before and after school childcare. Our regional partners that administer the Ready funds withdrew that money from the project because of concerns related to construction schedule. It is a great project, and I hope the Y continues on. I think the Y will continue on, but as it relates to the $190,000 from Ready One, the timing just was not going to work in terms of drawing down the money, spending the money. And so the region made the decision to withdraw that money. And it was after 2 meetings and consultation and conversation with the Y. So it wasn't a surprise. There was an effort to work with that project and solve some timing issues, and we just couldn't overcome it. We are trying to keep the $190,000 in the county. The region is supportive of that. Obviously, if we can't, I'm sure that there are other projects in other counties within our region that could use it, but we're trying to keep it in the county. And the direction that we're headed now with that $190,000, for the same reason, timing, how quickly can we spend it, is the housing project or the housing development at County Road 200 North and State Road 3. The very same project that you all approved the bond issue on earlier this year. The region is supportive of plugging that $190,000 into that project for public infrastructure. And they've already started conversations with the state. So that looks hopeful. I segue into an update on that project specifically. And I have appeared before you and the commissioners talking about the impact of Senate Bill 1, now Senate Enrolled Act 1. And I was worried specifically about the impact. I know there's a lot of worries about Senate Bill 1 across the board. But specifically on residential development and utilizing residential tax increment financing. So you capture the taxes from the homes that are built, the proceeds pay the debt service. The debt service or the bond proceeds are used to fund the public infrastructure. Without the public infrastructure, there's no homes. The homes are paid for by the builder, people buy the homes. So the incentive here is the public infrastructure: water, sewer, roads, drainage. And for the benefit of the viewing public, this bond is payable from two sources and two sources only. The increment generated off the homes, if that is insufficient, then the developer is on the hook. There is no other public pledge. So there's significant risk to the developer. That bond payment is $86,000 a year. So here's a real live example of the impact of Senate Bill 1. Prior to Senate Bill 1, 1.5 million. After Senate Bill 1, so the bond amount, what could be supported? 1.5 million. After Senate Bill 1, $1 million in round figures. So there's a gap. There's a $500,000 gap on the public infrastructure. So if you apply the 190,000 to that gap, that's 35% of the gap. The developer's contribution increases 285,373. They were already into it for 330. So 330 plus 285. So 285, that's 53% of the gap. And then tomorrow, the Redevelopment Commission is meeting, and I will ask them to authorize an additional $61,627 to close the gap. And that's 12% of the gap. Overall, the project, and this is just the public infrastructure, I'm not talking about housing. Overall, the project is including debt service reserve, capitalized interest, and professional fees. The project is about 2.1 million. I'm rounding up, 2.1 million. The breakdown of that, bond proceeds are at $1 million, so about 50%. Ready One at 190,000, that's 9%. The developer contribution is $500,000. So in addition to guaranteeing the bonds, the developer's kicking in $500,000 up front. That's 24%. And then the Redevelopment Commission had already approved, when we applied for the IFA, 300,000. That's 14%. And then if the RDC approves the 61,000, that's another 3%. So that's the breakdown of the public infrastructure. We utilize two tools that were created and funded by the General Assembly to help with the housing shortage in rural Indiana. That was the IFA RIF program, Residential Infrastructure Fund. That was funded by the General Assembly in the current budget that was adopted 2 years ago, $50 million. They gave extra points if you're in rural Indiana. We took advantage of it. We applied in the December funding round and were selected. We were one of 12 out of over 100 put in. The advantage there is, so IFA is buying the bonds. The advantage there is a low interest rate. It's 3.15%. You're not going to find that interest rate on the market right now. Senator Rotz championed the residential TIF bill a few years ago. We took advantage of that. Fast forward, because these projects take time. We've been working on this for over 2 years. Senate Enrolled Act comes in and breaks in a lot of china. A lot of dishes. I think we'll be able to get it done. We need to close on the bonds before July 1st. And then construction on the public infrastructure will start henceforth. It's 65 homes over a 4-year period. The builder of the homes is Hallmark. So a builder that's been around for a number of years. I would call them a regional builder. And the average price point is $280,000. So that's a Ready One update into a project that you guys have been intimately involved in, and I wanted to give you a real world example of the impact of Senate Bill 1.
Just to make sure I'm clear, the result is because Senate Bill 1 reduced the amount of property tax revenue available to pay the bond payment.
Yes,
So you have a finite amount of money. You can't borrow 1.5 million. You can only borrow 1 million in order to make that payment.
correct.
So instead of buying a $500,000 house because I can't afford it, I'm gonna buy a $280,000 house because I can't afford it from my perspective. But that's the gist of it, because we don't have the revenue to support it.
The purchasing power of the bond decreased by $500,000 because
We could borrow that money, but we can't afford to pay it back.
Right.
That's
Yep.
the point, yeah. Thank you.
so
I think most of us contacted Senator Rotz about Senate Bill 1. I think most of us up here contacted Corey Criswell, Representative Criswell,
Yeah.
concerning Senate Bill 1. I know different department heads. I know Angela with Health First. And it either fell on deaf ears or they got a lot of pressure from the majority up there not to buck what the new governor wanted, but it is going to have an impact. And I think between Shannon and I, we figure 2.75 to 3 million from what we would have if they'd left darn well alone over the next 3 years. And then actually, I think revs up after that even more, but the business personal property tax is going to have a monumental effect on us. Health First, a monumental effect on us. Also that the most that an average John Q. public will get is $300 unless they're disabled veteran or over 65. $300 and we lose 3 million as over the next 3 years. So I guess it looks good on paper if you're running for state office. It doesn't look good if you're a local person, municipality needing funding to support basics. They think there's a lot of fluff. There's not a lot of fluff at the local level. At least in East Central Indiana, there's not a lot of fluff with all the manufacturers moving out in the last 20, 30 years. So, well, enjoy the $300.
I know I'm preaching to the choir to the extent, but I wanted to give you an update on that project. And so Ready 2, the main project for Ready 2 in this county is housing. And we're going to see the same challenge because part of the funding component on that is residential TIF, not with the IFA. So the interest rate's going to be significantly higher than 3, but I'll bore you with that another time.
Real quick, has Ready 2, are they close to?
I have no new information.
I know.
I have no new information. I do know that there are several housing projects in our region that the region is supporting a Ready 2 award. And the longer the delay on the decision, we're losing the 25 construction schedule. Because there's still a process, once they say go, there's still a process we need to go through. So it'll be interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. I'm kind of glad that it seems like we'll still figure out a way to get this one across the finish line.
Yeah.
'Cause housing is absolutely a dire need in this community. So, thanks for the not so good news, but a good finish, I guess. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is some additional appropriations for the highway department. Braden, I see you have them here. Do you have anything to add?
I mean, looking for additional money to get some of these small structures replaced that need to be replaced is, the reason why this is being, asked for.
And these amounts, a lot of them were appropriated last year, but the way the schedule works and payments come in,
Yeah.
the invoices didn't come in. They were left over from being appropriated from last year and unused.
Correct, and then, a portion of that was actually set aside for a bridge project last year that did not take off last year.
So there is money in these funds to do these is what I'm saying. So you're not asking for additional from the general. There's money in the Cume Bridge and the MVH. So
Correct,
it's doing the appropriation. So it's not, okay.
correct.
Any other questions?
What's the status on the 3 roads that had to be closed because they didn't pass inspection?
The box culverts have been ordered. One is due to come in June. Second one is scheduled to come in July. And then the third one will not be here till after the 1st of August.
And after they come in, are we looking like a month for each one after they come in to be able to install, or does it?
No, the plan is to have everything prepped and ready so that when those deliveries come in on the semis, there's already a crane sitting there to lift them off and they get set immediately. So providing there's no problems that we run into setting those, I'm hopeful that, a week, once those are delivered, then we're able to open the road back up. But we have 50 small structures in this county that need to be replaced.
I will make a motion to approve the requested appropriations from Cume Bridge and from MVH.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'll
Hearing-
just make one comment. The Cume Bridge Fund, we've had discussions about during budget time in the past. And I'm fully support this, but that Cume Bridge Fund is nearly depleted after this allocation. There's other money in the MVH fund, but just wanted everybody to be aware of that. We're gonna have to take a serious look at that at budget time.
Chad, 5 years ago, I said our Cume Bridge is the second lowest of the 25 counties in eastern Indiana. We need to do something. But when we adjust that, we have to also look at and adjust the other 3 cumulative funds, which includes the park and health, and I think maybe 911. I'm not sure what the 4th one is, but it has a domino effect. But I'll repeat for probably the 10th time in the last 5 years, it's pathetically low given our needs. And at some point, and we researched last year during the budget session to change that, there's a May 31st deadline. The others are August, but the Cume Bridge is, so a decision were made today with a 10-day required public notice we have to have a special meeting on May 31st, no, or May 30th, no, May 31st. And there's a lot of hoops that have to go through. Lisa Lee, I think we paid several $1,000s for when we changed and altered the park. It's not an easy process, so that's just information for your consumption.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that has to start from the commissioner's side to change the Cume Bridge Fund. That starts from the commissioners, not the council.
Was that a shaking head, Joel?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do agree with Bobby. Yes, that's my understanding as well. And Joel, you say that and unfortunately, that's an oddball one, kind of like, Angela's coming up next. She's got to have a budget in way earlier to the state than everybody else. And there's just a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense in this new budget cycle. So anyway,
Well, this was, I might add too, this is trying to eliminate from paving a very, very, very small portion compared to what we have been doing in the past, with this additional. It would allow us to leave more money into the paving. And that's, obviously, everybody wants their roads paved, but, the money has to come from somewhere to fix these structures, so.
Well, I appreciate everything you do. I know it's difficult because you have a finite amount of money and everybody, like I said, everybody wants their road done and you guys only have so much labor and manpower to do that and very little money to get it done with the way things are going. So you guys are doing a phenomenal job with what you've got. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Do I have any further discussion about this matter? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks,
Thank-
Braden. I appreciate everything you
Thank
guys
you.
are doing. Okay, Miss Angela, you have an additional on the agenda. You
For
do?
the 52,000, do you remember? We talked about it, the 52,000 that you had left over, your carryover from 2024.
It was dated April 5th, so you probably slept since then. At least 2 nights you probably slept.
I just did, if you have anything to add, I know you kind of talked to us about this at the last meeting, and we just had to punt it because of the timing thing that Kenan was talking about. We have to jump through the hoops to get everything done. So yes, I know you mentioned it. Does anyone have any questions for Angela about this?
I will make the motion to approve the additional appropriation
And I'll
carry
second,
from 2024.
and I'll second it.
All right, we have motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Angela. Okay, we have the abatement reports on the list. So all of these are Boar's Head related. I sit on the abatement committee with Shannon and Mike. I sat on that committee when I was here before and, looking at all these, Boar's Head is still far exceeding their expectations that they had when we got the abatements. But does anyone have any questions or thoughts or want to take any action on approving these reports?
I'd like to know if we can make a motion to accept and approve them all together. I will make that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is a reappointment for Bill Upchurch. Unfortunately, Bill was here, but he had to go out to attend another meeting, so he had to leave. But Jody Brown has sent a letter over to the council asking to reappoint Bill Upchurch to the PETA Board. Bill has the experience. He has a level 2 assessor appraiser from the state, and Bill has served on this board for a number of years. I'm not sure exactly how many, but so I believe this is the only letter of interest we had. Is there any thoughts? Anyone want to take any action on this appointment?
I think very few people probably have the necessary background and level two designation. I would make a motion to reappoint Bill to the PETA board.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. And then passes unanimously. Okay, and next on the agenda, again, Bill has a transfer that we received a few days ago. He's requesting to transfer from miscellaneous supplies to part-time help in the amount of $2,448.
I'll make the motion to approve the transfer.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, next on our agenda is the approval of the opioid expenditures. Yeah, thank you, Bobby. That's what I was wanting to confirm. So it is number 17 and 18 additional on the bottom of these.
I have to abstain on 18.
So so Joel, should we vote on these separately since we have a couple count? Scott has to abstain on 17, Kenan has to abstain on 18. Okay, so I'll make the motion to approve number 17, the sum of $36,000 to the Henry County Women's Recovery Center to assist with the cost of treatment services.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that $36,000 to the Henry County? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. So a 5 and 1 abstention.
And I will make the motion on number 18 to approve the sum of $65,000 to Hope Initiative as the fiscal agent for Hagar's Hope to renovate the Williams property for use as a facility to assist persons suffering from substance abuse disorder.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Even though I have to abstain, I'll simply say that Hope Initiative is a fiscal agent because it's been 6 months with the IRS for Hagar's Hope to obtain their 501c3. And Hope agreed to do that until that was received from the IRS. And the director, Jamie Owens, said that should have that within the next 6 weeks. So, and I will be abstaining.
Okay. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. So we passes 5-0 with 1 abstention. Okay, any further business amongst the council members?
In case you didn't read your email today, I did send out the Wagner-Irwin Shealy report to everyone with the 95-97%, similar to what I did last year. And I also copied all department heads on that as well. If the department heads haven't seen their email, it's in there.
Thank you.
I sent to you via text because I haven't downloaded. You and I, Chad, attended the workshop at Shelbyville. Half of it was on basically gateway entry of data relating to our annual budget, which is largely done, I think, by the auditor's department. The last half, however, was Ryan Hoff and the impact and more specifics of SCA 1, formerly Senate Bill 1, which is going to be significant. Some of it's going to impact us next year. Some of it won't take effect until 27. Some of it won't fully be impacted or take effect until 2028. Since you and I paid for, I think we can download the actual electronic copy, but I haven't done that yet. So I give you a printout of, and I gave you snapshots of the handout that we got. He went through a lot of detail, but it's, as we said, and Corey said, it is going to have a dramatic impact when we start planning on salaries and budgets this coming year, because we need to really be thinking ahead 3 years.
And I will only kind of piggyback onto that. I was in a AIC district meeting last night and sat at a table with a gentleman from Baker Tilly, and they're still working to even compile the software to calculate the massive changes that come from that bill. His indication was that Jason's original mid-June guess might be zealous. It could be July before we see the numbers. And their initial estimate may have been low, according to him. What they're seeing now, is the numbers are coming back worse than anticipated. So as soon as that is done, Jason is supposed to reach out so we can set up a meeting to go through that data right away as soon as we have that in hand. So obviously I'll reach out to the entire council and we'll set up a work session as soon as we get that information in hand. So any additional information from the council? Any department heads or members of the public that would like to speak or add anything?
I'd like to add one thing. Make sure you sign up for the ICCA State Board of Accounts called meeting on June 21st. Very valuable, is paid for. It's one of those that's paid for, I think, out of the Recorder's Fund. But anyway, it's totally paid for, and it is, I think, the only one per year that is actually State Board of Accounts certified for county council. It's going to be in Carmel, so registration's open.
Okay, Mr. Murphy?
Real quick, I forgot. I would like to schedule a meeting of the abatement committee and invite someone from Baker Tilly, maybe give them a couple months to catch their breath. But the purpose of this is to look at the impact, look at the changes in Senate Bill 1 and 1427 as it relates to the elimination of the 30% floor on the depreciation schedule for business personal property. And I want to have that conversation with the abatement committee before we have a project. I think it changes the way we approach abatement on personal property. And to be more specific, I think we give less abatement because they'll depreciate it faster, and then there's no payoff to the county in the end unless there is substantial job creation or another substantial reason to engage in a longer abatement. So I want to have this policy conversation separate from a project. And so maybe we'll do it around Christmas time, after, I'm joking, after us, after everybody understands the impact.
You say that, but you might not.
Yeah.
Which Christmas of which year?
Thank you.
Okay.
One more thing, Chad, I'm sorry. Affordable Housing Summit, Hope is sponsoring next Tuesday, May 20th, 6 p.m. to 7:30 at the REMC Community Room. As you rightfully pointed out earlier, housing is a major concern, issue, shortage, high demand, low supply. And again, most of East Central Indiana, but in particular Henry County, for the affordable housing. They're bringing in some straight shooters from Indianapolis, the state and locally, 6 o'clock next Tuesday, the 20th.
So I will just remind everyone that we have a special meeting in here next Monday morning, the 19th at 10:30. We will be discussing a potential change in the lit that affects the fire departments, and then also the health department, Indiana Health First funding, and the massive change that came out of the legislative body this year with that. So anything additional?
No, can I quickly make a motion to adjourn before we keep going? No, I'm kidding.
Second.
A second. Okay. All those in favor? Thanks,
Aye.
everybody. I appreciate it.
Do we need to sign something? Bobby, we need to sign that opioid